YouTube Ozzy going the Goat House is back with my guys of the 2024 NFL Draft. My favorite players and players that I seem to be a bit higher on than everyone else, or mostly everybody else. Something I do every single draft season. Seems like the Lions keep drafting guys from off this list, so we'll see if that continues to happen since Brad Holmes has been there. But a bunch of content on the channel. More to come. We'll be live during day one right here on YouTube. So if you join us, live analysis day 2 and 3 on Twitter. We'll have winners, losers, grades videos throughout each day of the NFL draft right here on YouTube as well. Important links pinned in the comments. Obviously, I was going to have Drake May on this list as one of my favorite players in the draft because he is my number one overall player, and it's not really a super common take. Just a big fan of Drake May. I have been since the first time he started for North Carolina. I think he's got the most upside in the class. I think he has the makings to potentially be an elite NFL quarterback. So my number one player, most people's quarterback 2. I had quite a few people's quarterback 3 actually as well. And then obviously, if you've been watching my, if you watch the Goat House videos, you probably expected Max Melton to make this list. And then for the average experts rank, obviously in the blue is my ranks. The average experts ranks. I've always done some of the most used or popular rankings out there. So I combine Pro Football Focus, NFL.com. They have like under their tracker, and then Dane Brugler, who has kind of the most famous position rankings, big boards, draft previews. So combine those, and I was surprised that Max Melton was average of those is cornerback 11. I think you watching out there, you got to be higher. You got to be maybe closer where I have them, maybe where I have him. But it seems like ever since the combine, a lot of people like Max Melton. I seem to like him a bit more. I would take him in the first round. Very well could go early second. I just love the way he plays. Very tough, works downhill. The press ability is impressive, especially from the slot. That really gets me how he presses from the slot. How he did it against Roman Wilson, who we'll talk about, spoiler. The change of direction skills, I thought he did pretty solid on Marvin Harrison Jr. The length, the athleticism, I think he has a lot of upside. So I like Max Melton enough for him to be a first-round corner. So one of my favorite guys in the draft. Another one's going to be Byron Murphy, the second defensive tackle from Clemson. A guy that it seems everyone's high on him now, but a guy that I'm a little proud of myself for being kind of jumping on it very early. Before the season even ended, I'm like, this guy's a top D tackle in the class. While everyone's talking about Newton, some people still think Newton is. But Murphy really wasn't talked about a ton, and I was kind of calling him the best defensive player in this draft. And he has been my number one defensive player in this draft for the whole process. And that's not too uncommon of a take anymore, but it's just a guy that I like from the start. So he's going to make the list, of course. My number 9 overall player, my number 1 defensive player. Average would be number 5 overall defensive player. Some people have corners and edge rushers ahead. So, some have Newton ahead of Murphy at his own position. Newton's a great player. I just think Murphy's an absolute stud. The only knock on him is he's a little undersized, right? Doesn't have the perfect weight, the perfect height, the perfect length. He's not severely undersized in those categories, but he plays way stronger than those things, and he's a baller. So, love me some Byron Murphy, top defensive player in the draft for me. Another one, Chop Robinson, which I seem to be high on from the jump as well. I don't know if anyone's really changed their opinion on him. It's kind of whatever you had on Chop Robinson, it's probably the same. But he is lacking production, like your basic production, sacks. So I think some people write him off, but if you watch the tape, he makes a lot more of an impact, and those sack stats will show. And I love that. I've always been a sucker for pass rushers that have extremely explosive get off, and here is like the poster child for that. Like, he is elite NFL get off. That's a guy I want to work with because I'm not going to be able to coach get off out of a guy. I think somewhere in high school, maybe the first year in college, that's right around where you're going to have forever when it comes to get off, at least in my opinion, or based on the past. So he's 18 overall on my board, which is pretty high. And then he's my second best edge rusher in the class. Average expert rank, he seems to be around that 4, sometimes 5 spot for people. But it seems like the highest I've seen him is 4. I have him at 2. I just think he has a ton of upside. I think he's going to be much more productive at the next level. Just really fun to watch. Next, we got Tavondre Sweat. So we actually have both Texas interior defensive lineman. And it is tough to put a guy on the list that was just arrested a couple weeks ago. I think he's an idiot for that because it happened and because it happened that close to the draft. I mean, you got to be pretty stupid, to be honest. But I love this guy's tape. I love his tape so much. I honestly think there's first-round talent there because how unique he is and how he makes his teammates better, how he creates for his teammates. I've always loved players like that. He basically swallows blockers. You absolutely have to double team him because he's more than just a big body. And you look at him, you're like, oh, he's a nose tackle. He's an A-gap player. No, he actually played a ton in the B-gap, and he had some nifty pass rush moves from there as well. So I talent-wise, people will disagree. I think he's a late first-round player, but you do move him down the board because the stupid mistake that he made, and I guess that kind of goes along with his character, but he's firmly in my defensive tackle 3. If there was no off-the-field issues, he actually is in conversation of being number 2, contention of being number 2 with Newton. And he seems to be, the average rank is around D tackle 8, which I don't know if he was pushed down a ton because of the off-the-field concern or if that's just where their talent is with him. I think he's extremely talented, a unique player, another Jordan Davis type player. Jordan Davis, obviously a better prospect, was a better prospect and more athletic. But just so much of an impact. So I love the guys that create for their teammates. So he'll make the list, even though it's a little tough doing that because he was arrested a few weeks ago. Roman Wilson, maybe my favorite receiver that isn't number 1, in the class. And it's tough. Everyone's rankings for receivers like 6 through like 14 around there. Like everyone, for the most part, everyone has them pretty close. Like they're not too far off, but I seem to be much higher on Roman Wilson than pretty much everyone. It's just one that I don't think you should overthink. He gets open, like he's smart. He gets open. He's quick, and he catches the ball. McCarthy threw the ball behind him a bit too and made some catches on those. I think he's been a lot more productive in more of a passing offense, a pass-first offense, which is a lot of them in the NFL these days. 33rd overall player, my receiver 6. So after the obvious big 5, after the obvious big 3, there's a big 2, and then he's actually the next guy for me. An average rank was receiver 9. So I wouldn't be like, I have a early round 2 grade on him, but if somebody took him late first, I'd be like, hey, I kind of like it. I guess it depends on the team and the situation, who they passed on, but I like Roman Wilson. I think he could have a similar impact to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think St. Brown's a little tougher after the catch, but slot receivers, shifty, quick slot receivers that get first downs. They're smart. They get open, and they find lanes after the catch. So like Roman Wilson quite a bit. Another receiver is Jalen McMillan from Washington. I liked Polk after watching live play this year, and everyone likes Odunze. And then after watching tape from 2022 and his moments in 2023, I'm like, I really like McMillan. I like him better than Polk pretty easily, and they're 2 different style receivers for sure. But in 2022, it is you can make a very strong argument that McMillan was the best receiver on Washington, and that included Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk. So that's something to me, and it's another guy. You put him in a slot. He's got really good footwork. He separates. He makes catches. So I have him 50 overall. And the only knock against him is, he's a thin frame, and he was beat up this year. And he's not going to win with physicality, and he's not going to get a ton of contested catches. So you have to have some receivers higher on him. But I think someone's going to get a steal with him. It's a guy who can get the ball underneath or intermediate or downfield. So, and the average rank, I was surprised, was actually receiver 20. That's way too low between, the main rankings that I combined for the average experts rank. So I was surprised it was all the way down at 20. I think people are way too low on Jalen McMillan. I think someone's going to steal him. Brandon Dorlus, another one of my favorite players in the draft, defensive lineman from Oregon, pretty versatile, can play D tackle, 3 technique or defensive end, has a lot of reps even off the edge at D end. My number 46 overall player, he's my defensive lineman number 4. So, ahead of some big time guys that, I think that's pretty rare. I mean, average rank end up being 8 for a defensive lineman. I love his game from the inside. Some people even call him an edge player or a defensive end. I think he can play there, but I like his upside on the inside. He could add a little bit more strength, but I think there's more there than people give him credit for. He's got some nasty moves. He's pretty damn instinctive. He gets his hands in the ball a lot. I think he could be a Justin Matabuke type player. Pretty similar coming out, where it's like this guy's productive, like it makes impact in different ways, but a little raw as an NFL prospect. You kind of got to get him in his right role. And then Matabuke really wasn't much of anybody. And then, he was solid before this year, but really broke out this year. I think Dorlus can have a similar path, and he's a similar style player, in my opinion. Just a big impact player, bigger than people are giving him credit for. So I think he's pretty underrated. I like him in the second round. Ben Sinnott, another one that I was pretty proud of myself for, like, kind of jumping on earlier than everyone else. I didn't watch a tight end tape that early, though. But once I got to it, everyone had kind of their firm rankings of Sanders tight end 2, and even Theo Johnson, all these guys ahead of him. Everybody, all the notable guys besides Brock Bowers, or along with Brock Bowers ahead of him. Obviously Brock Bowers. But as soon as I watched the tape, I'm like, this guy to me is clearly the second best tight end. I think I tweeted it a while back. I've definitely updated my tight end rankings since my rankings video, but he was even number 2 in that one. That was in the receiver video as well. And it seems like people are kind of getting feedback from the league, and they're like, you better take a look at Sinnott again and move him up your board. And everyone all of a sudden's like, okay, he's a top 3 tight end for me, or at least top 5. So I don't think the average rank ended up being tight end 6, so I'm a bit higher still. But I think people are starting to catch on, but he's a stud. If there was anybody that was going to, I don't think anyone's going to do it, but if there was anybody that was going to make a Sam Laporta type season, or have that type of season where he's way better than he was in college, he's way more productive, he's used way more, and he's just dominant, I don't think anyone's going to do that. But if there is somebody, I think it'd be Ben Sinnott from Kansas State here. So, I was very happy with myself that I jumped on that one pretty early. And another tight end I have is Tanner McLachlan, who I've liked from the start. And it was a guy that I was a little hesitant to move up my tight end ranks because he's really lacking length. And you do want your tight ends, for several reasons, for the pass and run game, to be pretty lengthy. So I was like, God, that is going to force him down. But, man, I don't want to overthink things. This guy, I happened to watch a lot of Arizona games live this year. I'm not an Arizona fan. I don't support the team, but I found myself being a fan this year because they were a really good football team. And he stood out to me during the year quite a bit. And usually the guys that stand out to me several times, like throughout a live, season, they end up doing well. I think I kind of tell myself, like, go off that a little bit more. And I watch the tape and I see him being smart, like a smart route runner, reading coverages on the fly. He gets open, he catches the ball, he finds lanes after the catch. He's solid. Like, he's really solid. So he's my number 87 overall player, my tight end 3, and he's actually all the way down at tight end 9 on the average rank. And it's probably because of the lack of length, but he's a stud. Like, he's a legit weapon. So I do have an unusual top 3, well, not number 1, Bowers, but top 3 tight ends with Sinnott 2 and McLachlan number 3, and I actually have Jared Wiley 4. So I have an unusual tight end rankings, but I feel very good about it. Next, on to the running backs. I always, the running backs that make my guys list, they always seem to turn out. I don't know. So Marshawn Lloyd is another one. There's a few guys on this list that I'm happy. Pat myself in the back a little bit. Don't mind me here, that I was kind of on it a little earlier than everyone else. But it doesn't mean everything, obviously. Once everyone eventually get to the tape, but Lloyd really wasn't being talked about even as a mid-round guy. Like, he was kind of a late day 3 guy. And I'm like, this guy is a contender for running back 1. He's up there. So I was happy to see that right from the get-go. And he is a top 3 running back for me. Average rank is running back 6, but he's a guy that's kind of moved up some people's boards as time went on here, but just so explosive. I think he's sneaky good in the passing game. It's just, remember that that USC offense. It's just with Caleb Williams, understandably, they're throwing the ball a lot, getting outside the pocket and slinging it. It's just, I think there's going to be NFL offenses that fit Marshawn Lloyd's strengths a little bit more and going to get him more action. The only knock on him is he's had some fumbles. That's really the knock on him. So hopefully he can fix that. Another running back is Audric Estime from Notre Dame. I think people are sleeping on him. I was surprised the average rank was running back 10, 11, or 12, around there. I got him running back 5. I think he's a third-round pick. It's a unique player. You do not see guys this big and this powerful that move like he does, and I think people forget because the Combine 40, they forget about those things. He did help himself with his Pro Day 40, but the way he moved, the way he jukes guys, cuts, goes over them, runs through them, runs by them, the acceleration is there. And I was thinking this too recently is if you were to make, and it's not all about highlights, not even close to all about highlights, but if you were to make a montage of the sickest highlights or like the best, biggest impact highlights from this entire draft class, I think you would find Audric Estime on there quite a bit with his big time plays. The hurdles are ridiculous and running people over. The biggest one, probably the NC State game. The game was delayed for a long ass time, and then they come back and first play is gone for like an 80 or 70 yard touchdown, whatever it was. So I think he's a unique type player, and I don't really see too many flaws. He's not as athletic as some of the shiftier guys, but it's okay. To me, it's okay. So I think people are sleeping on him, like Audric Estime, a lot here. So next, Cedric Gray, so another North Carolina guy. He's my number 2 linebacker, and his average rank is linebacker 6. I love him in coverage. He's really instinctive in coverage, really smart, reads the quarterback well. I think he can rush the quarterback. I think he's got some upside doing that, and he's a pretty safe tackler. He's pretty rangy. He led all Power 5 defenders and tackles. It's not everything, but to me it means something. So it feels like a really safe pick. I guess scheme dependent a little bit, but it seems like a really safe pick. I'm not sure why people are kind of sleeping on him. That's really not. He's not overly flashy, I guess. I feel like in coverage he kind of is, but I guess he's not overly flashy. But I'm just trying to figure out why people are sleeping on him more. Like linebacker 6 is pretty ridiculous to me. And another linebacker is Trevin Wallace. I think it's different than Cedric Gray. A little bit more of a risky pick because he's an upside guy. He has the complete traits right now of a freak explosive linebacker for today's NFL. And he has some solid play, but he has to fully put it together. But he has some flashy plays for sure here and there. And it's the guy that I think an NFL coaching staff could really get it out of him. I don't think it's going to take as much as it seems. So he's my linebacker 4. Average rank is linebacker 8. I always seem to have Kentucky players, I feel like, make this list every year. Could be wrong, but just top of my head, so I'm thinking. Christian Mahogany, a guard from Boston College. I'm surprised he's being slept on. I feel like he's a second-round pick. Fine with early third, whatever. He's my 3rd best guard, 65 overall, and he's guard 6 for most people. You don't really hear his name much. Like I feel like players that are like for sure gonna go from days 1 through 2, like everybody knows their names and their names are brought up a ton. Even some guys that are going around 4, you just don't hear his name much. He's a guy, no matter where you have him ranked, I feel like he's gonna be on my list because he's a guy. Like, he wants to get downfield and blow somebody up, and he's good at it. There's those other guys that want to do it, and they put their head down, they whiff, they're on the ground. Mahogany's solid. He's really solid. Right guard from Boston College, and he was really fun to watch. He was one of the more fun offensive linemen to watch, like maybe at the top there. So I'm going to put him on this list. Cole Bishop ended up being my 2nd best safety, my number 1 strong safety. I actually like Cooper DeJean as a safety, so most people don't have him as anywhere near a safety. So if you take him away, Bishop would actually be my number 1 safety. 64 overall. I just love his instincts, and I love the backfield production, the backfield play. Like he's a safety. To me, he's a strong safety that's really good in the box that also ends up in the backfield a ton and also played free safety and was pretty good with his instincts and playmaking ability back there. There's just games where it's like, this guy is everywhere. He's everywhere. So I think he's a zone. I think he's a zone safety too, which I like. There's more zone in the NFL, and guys that stand out zone wise in college stand out to me. So I like Cole Bishop. Curious to see where he goes. Probably round 3. I think somebody might steal him around there. But big fan. Gabriel Murphy, edge from UCLA. Kind of a Swiss Army knife of a defense, and I love those guys. And why people are sleeping on him is obvious, and it's understandable. He is severely lacking length, and you want length from the edge position, but he's not your typical edge guy, but he does play very well off the edge. But they line him up everywhere. I mean, he's at DN, hand the dirt, standing up, over the tackle, inside the tackle, hand the dirt, or standing up, like an off-ball linebacker spot. Like, you're going to line him up everywhere, and he's going to get after the quarterback, whether it's a blitz or off the edge, and he's just a unique weapon. I think I said it before, it's kind of how Arden Key was being used with Jacksonville and kind of with Tennessee now as well. So it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife for defense, but he is a pass rusher. He is an edge rusher. My edge 9, so he's in the top 10 on my edge board. 77 overall, average rank is edge 13. And then here's like more of a sleeper one here. This was one I just was surprised to notice the difference in my ranks. I watched Jaden Crumney from Mississippi State. He's not the biggest name at all. He's a day 3 guy. I'm in agreement. He's a day 3 guy. But I watched him, and I'm like, what am I missing here? This guy is pretty strong. He's got really good length. I like the explosiveness. He can shed blocks. He knows how to use the combination of length and power. He's in the backfield a ton in the run game. I thought playing against LSU, he stood out. He was getting after Daniels. He was causing some problems there. And then people are really ranking him low. Like, average rank is 20. I'm like, there really isn't the best defensive lineman around that range. There's some sneaky ones, but there's a few nose tackles, which, they're not the flashiest nose tackles. How high do you take them? So, like, that's the type of guys that are around that range, like the 12 through 20 range, around that range. So I'm like, how is he not ranked higher up around 12? It's just a little surprising to me. So there's a sleeper that ended up being a huge difference at the end of the day for grades for me, and it feels like everybody else. And then some more guys that I just think are sleepers. Not all of them are deep sleepers. Not many of them, actually. They're just kind of day 3. They're probably locks to go day 3 that I just like. I think I like him more than other people too. Amani Bailey I really like from TCU. They've had some good running backs. He forced a lot of missed tackles. He seemed like a home run hitting guy. He's not overly speedy, and he's definitely on the shorter side, but he's fun. He's good. Jace McClellan, people got him way down their ranks. I mean, it's an Alabama running back. He's not the past Alabama running backs. Definitely not Jahmyr Gibbs, but he split with Jahmyr Gibbs 2 years ago, and I thought he was almost as effective. I think he's sneaky good. He's quick. I'm not really sure why people are sleeping on him. Taj Washington from USC, really good underneath, really good after the catch. He gets open. He catches the ball. It's one of those ones, like, let's not overthink it. Jaheim Bell, tight end from Florida State, guy that catches the ball, is really good after the catch. Another one I'm surprised about. He's not talking about much. Curtis Jacobs from Penn State, athletic outside linebacker, really rangy. Another one that was fun to watch. Steel Chambers, I think people are really sleeping on him. I think he could be better in the NFL than he was at Ohio State, actually. Like, he just seems like an NFL linebacker to me. Not super flashy either, but then Jarvis Brownlee, who could sneak into the 3rd round, but he can play outside and in the slot. He's tough, physical, gets downhill. Thought he had a really good outing at the Senior Bowl. Javon Solomon, edge from Troy. He's explosive off the edge. I love that. He actually played more snaps inside, which he's not really built for, and he was pretty solid there. But I thought he was better off the edge where he belongs. So I'd imagine an NFL team puts him in the right spot, and he actually has more upside. So I do like that. And then actually 2 Air Force guys make the list. 2 Air Force guys, a little bit deeper of a sleeper. Bo Richter, and I think the issue for some people, they don't know where to put him. He's listed by most people as an off-ball linebacker. I actually like him off the edge. I think he could be like a Van Ginkel type player, but he could be like a unique, Swiss Army knife type player. Where you can blitz him or rush him off the edge. But this guy is like a high motor freak athlete, and he's everywhere. And I'm surprised he's not being talked about more. Some people probably don't even have a grade on him, which is mind-blowing to me. But he's just really fun to watch. And his teammate, safety from Air Force, Trey Taylor, strong safety in my opinion, pretty instinctive. He made a crazy play against San Diego State that he got his hands on the ball. Like, I don't really know. The reactions and the instincts really stood out. So that one's kind of sticking in my mind. Like, he makes some crazy plays. Can turn and run with guys, can get downhill. So that's another one I like for day 3. And there's like super deep sleepers that I like, but not really what we wanted to focus on in this video. But there you have it. I'm very curious to see which of these you agree with, or that are also on your My Guys list, or just comment with your guys list or your favorite players. Just something we love doing every single year here, and I just love seeing other people's opinions, especially people that watch us here. So we'll see how many these guys Brad Holmes drafts, because I think every year he's been an actual GM for the Lions, he's drafted at least one. So that's been interesting. We'll watch it. We'll see if it happens this year, I guess. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Check out our content again live during day 1. Very, very important to follow us on Twitter. Very, very important. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.